All right, we're live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of Full Court Femmes Red Storm Report, the brand new home for bold takes, sharp analysis, and unapologetic fan energy, covering St. John's basketball all season long.
Erin, I can't believe we finally get to say that out loud.
I know, Caroline, me too. I'm so excited. I'm Erin.
And I'm Caroline. And if you're here, you love St. John's basketball like we do. I have been a St. John's basketball fan since I was born. My dad went to St. John's Law. I had a onesie that said St. John's when I was a kid. I've gone to games forever. And then I went to St. John's Law. My husband went to St. John's Law. My kids had onesies when they were little. They go to games. We go to games. We now have season tickets, Erin. We both go. We go together. So we're talking, at least, without dating myself, 58 years of being a St. John's basketball fan.
So we're not going to do the math, Caroline, because I married into being a St. John's fan. I've always been a Big East basketball fan. I've always been a basketball fan. But I got lucky to marry into not only a guy who graduated from St. John's Pharmacy School, but also a group of friends who, interestingly enough, they all went to St. John's as well. And so we've been watching basketball together for the last 5 years, having some great fun, like you said, at our season tickets, but also enjoying really the March Madness that goes on with Big East basketball at Madison Square Garden. And that's what this is all about, Caroline. You and I have sat and we've talked about basketball. We've done it courtside, we've done it bar side, we've done it all over the place. And we figured it was about time that we actually started to talk to others about Big East basketball, but really about what we're seeing in the Big East in general for St. John's. And so this podcast is going to be all Red Storm all the time, all season long. And we're going to bring you courtside insights. We're going to bring you Big East breakdowns from two women who just love to talk about the game.
And Erin, we're also going to make some bold predictions, and we fully expect not only our husbands and our friends, but our fans to keep us accountable.
Also, I agree with you, and let's really get into it then, because we've got folks who are depending on us to actually get these bold predictions, if not right. Coming into today's game, we've got St. John's at 6-3, and they are currently at the AP ranking of number 22, down from where they were, as you know, Caroline, with the number 1 ranking at the beginning of preseason, but still in the top 25. And they had a huge statement win against Iona.
So let's get into it, because there's a lot to like right now. On Saturday, December 13th at Madison Square Garden, St. John's beat Iona 91-64.
They did, and we were there to watch that New York market showdown. Not only was it important to the Johnnies to beat Iona, but it was important for Rick Pitino. As you well know, Caroline, he actually left Iona to come and coach St. John's 3 years ago. And you also have to stop and think about what we experienced on Saturday, Caroline, because the score looks like it was a fast-moving game from the beginning, but it doesn't tell the whole story. Because that first half, I think we were getting a little worried. It was sleepy.
Erin, it was very sleepy. St. John's came out cold, missing 12 of the first 13 shots, and it felt like everyone was waiting for that switch to flip.
And then it flipped, and it flipped hard.
Second half, 55 points, over 65% shooting, and suddenly Iona had absolutely no answers.
Had no answers because St. John's had a lot of folks on the court working hard to secure that win. And it was truly, Caroline, a group effort. But you and I both know there were some stars.
Let's start with Isaiah Sellers, who had 19 points, 4 threes, 16 of those points coming after halftime.
Well, 16 points coming after halftime is pretty incredible. And that's the definition of not only a game changer, but a momentum shifter for St. John's.
Let's also then talk about Ian Jackson getting his first start this season. 14 points, great energy, and active on both ends of the court.
You know, Caroline, folks have told us we shouldn't talk about his hair, but Rick Pitino did. And I can't help but wonder if that didn't help that energy move a little quicker on that court this time. We love seeing Ian Jackson's confidence grow.
And we would be remiss if we didn't talk about Bryce Hopkins and Joe Sansteinen, each chipped in with 13 points, which just shows how balanced this offense can be.
It's balanced, even if you can't get it out of your mouth, Caroline, because you and I both know that the game offensively probably wasn't their best, but defensively, this game belonged to your favorite Zuby Ejiofor.
Zuby, 8 blocks, Erin.
8 blocks! 8 blocks for the second straight game. Caroline, it's crazy.
And 10 rebounds. And he completely erased anything Iona wanted to do at the rim.
He took it away from them throughout the entire second half. St. John's also won the rebounding battle, 42-31, and that explains why that second half snowballed so fast.
This is the version of St. John's that makes other teams very uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable is exactly how other teams are feeling right now because they're starting to look like that number one team again. If we zoom out, we'll see that this team is really getting their stride and getting the national respect they deserve.
They're averaging close to 89 points per game, playing fast and forcing opponents to keep up whether they want to or not. The respect for this team is reflected in the AP poll, which currently ranks St. John's at 22.
And defensively, we keep talking about their defense, but it's real. And they're disruptive. They have length, athleticism, rim protection. It's not just about the scoring they can do when they need to. It's about the defense that keeps them close in tight games.
There's a reason St. John's was picked at the top of the Big East preseason poll. Coaches around the league see this roster.
And they're worried about this roster, Caroline, because you and I both know depth matters, and St. John's has it.
All right, next up, tomorrow night, Big East opener against DePaul.
Well, and it's a big one at Carnesecca. Listen, records aside, Big East games are never freebies for any team that plays in the Big East.
DePaul wants to run. They'll push tempo, take quick threes, and try to make this game chaotic.
And that's why St. John's discipline is really key here. If they defend without fouling, if they rebound the ball like they did against the game that they played with Iona on Saturday, they will be in total control.
This is also a game where St. John's athletic advantage should show up early.
It should show up early, and that's one of the keys to the game. There are a few of them we should discuss, so let's get into it.
Key number 1, Erin, turnovers. When St. John's gets steals, this offense turns lethal in transition.
Key number 2 is Zuby Ejiofor. If he locks in early, DePaul's offense will shrink fast.
Key number 3, balance. This team doesn't need one guy to score 30. It needs 5 guys in double figures.
And they can make that happen, and it gets scary quickly for them.
All right, let's really dig into this DePaul matchup because context matters here.
It really does. Because on paper, St. John's and DePaul are coming into this game from very different places. But Big East games don't care about paper.
All right, let's first start talking about schedules because that tells you a lot. St. John's has already been tested, and it shows in their current 6-3 record. They played multiple high major opponents in the current top 25, such as Alabama and Auburn, neutral site games, and teams that force you to defend for the full 40 minutes.
You can see how comfortable this team looks now. Even when the offense stalls, like it did early against Iona, they don't spiral. Caroline, they adjust. They adjust their play. They adjust the game.
DePaul's schedule has been a little lighter so far, with a handful of winnable games over teams like Arkansas Pine Bluff and Morgan State. They simply have not competed at the same level as St. John's. This results in fewer high-pressure environments and fewer games against elite athletes, which matters when you step into the Big East opener with an 8-3 record.
Because when you step into the Big East opener with an 8-3 record, they're expecting something, particularly when you walk into St. John's and you're at Carnesecca. They want to speed you up, body you inside, and make every possession exhausting. And St. John's will be able to do that against DePaul.
Now, DePaul does have guys who can hurt you if you're careless.
Yes, they do. And particularly their biggest strength is their guard play. They rely heavily on their primary ball handlers to create offense.
If those guards get comfortable, especially in transition or early offense, that's where DePaul can make things interesting. They have Blocker, who averages 11.5 points a game, Erin, and CJ Gunn, averaging 14.2 per game, had 18 points coming off the bench on Saturday against Wichita State.
18 points is a lot of points. And we see that because this team likes to hunt the floor and hunt threes. Well, they hunt space on the floor and take their threes. And if St. John's loses some of these shooters, or they overhelp on the inside, DePaul will absolutely take those shots without hesitation.
The concern for DePaul is consistency. When shots aren't falling, DePaul can get stagnant, and that's where St. John's pressure really becomes a problem for them.
It does become a problem for them, and when St. John's sees weakness, they're going to jump. You see, on the St. John's side, this matchup is going to highlight a few key guys, and we should call them out.
Let's start out with my buddy, Zuby Ejiofor. He's been a defensive anchor, and against a team that doesn't have an overwhelming size, he should control the paint.
Well, and if DePaul wants to attack the rim, they're going to have to rethink that, because he's gone twice with 8 blocks. We can see him getting a third one this time around.
Then there's Isaiah Sellers. He's coming off a confidence game, and this is the kind of matchup where his shooting can stretch the defense fast.
And let's not sleep on Ian Jackson. He had a great start last week. His energy, especially defensively, is exactly what disrupts guard-heavy teams like DePaul.
What really separates St. John's here is balance. DePaul is often looking for 1 or 2 guys to carry them.
Caroline, you and I have talked about this. 1 or 2 guys is not going to work, because St. John's can come at you with 5, 6, even 7 players, and each of them can score, defend, and rebound. One of the greatest strengths for St. John's is they have deep bench play, and we see that in guys like Mitchell or Darling, Leotopoulos, Io, and Prey.
So when you compare schedules, talent, depth, and physicality,
this is a game you and I both know St. John's should win if they play their game and they play it earlier.
But, Erin, we both know Big East openers have a way of humbling teams who don't bring full focus.
Which is why the first 10 minutes are going to matter so much. If they set the tone early and this matchup takes on the pace we think it will, it'll tilt quickly in St. John's favor. So it's time, and we hope it's a recurring opportunity to share with you our bold predictions and one you'll look forward to before each game in the Big East. Let's get into it.
Prediction number 1. St. John's forces at least 15 turnovers and scores 22 points or more off those turnovers.
Well, in prediction number 2, we're back to Zuby Ejiofor. We think he's going to post a double-double, at least 12 points, 11 rebounds, and though he has been trending towards 8 blocks, we see him swatting away 4 shots this week.
Prediction number 3. Isaiah Sellers goes for 20-plus points and hits 3 or more threes.
And prediction number 4, defense wins. We believe St. John's is going to keep DePaul shooting under 40% from the field.
Prediction number 5, our final score. We're calling it here, St. John's 83, DePaul 64.
Let's go. That's a comfortable, controlled statement win to start the Big East kickoff.
All right, now after DePaul, the next big one is December 31st against Georgetown.
And Georgetown comes in with a different team than it had last year. We're going to see Coach Cooley really bringing in a different type of play. We're talking slower pace, physical guards, and grinded out possessions.
It's also a great measuring stick game heading into the new year for the Johnnies.
Yes, it is. And we're going to have a full preview of that matchup coming soon. That game's going to be on December 31st. We're going to come to you on December 30th with our predictions and our preview of that exciting end of the season, or end of the year, actually, Caroline. End of 2025. That's what's going to happen, Georgetown and St. John's New Year's Eve.
That's it for episode 1 of Full Court Femmes Red Storm Report.
Caroline, we did it. We're so excited to do this with you all season long.
So give us a follow on social, share it, and tell your fellow St. John's fans.
And we'll be back, like I said, not back, breaking down that Georgetown game on December 30th, and they're going to play on December 31st. Come see us back here on the Full Court Femmes Red Storm Report while we track the Big East race.
Let's go, Johnnies!
Let's go, Johnnies!